Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. You are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Clint Daly, coming to you from the Mile High City here in Denver, Colorado. And we are back for another week of talking sports with a dose of common sense. Hey, happy Wednesday to you. You are halfway to another weekend. And I hope that you had a good weekend this past week. And I hope that your week is going well. I hope that you, your family, your friends, you're all staying strong and you are all staying healthy right now. And yes, kids, the 2024 World Series is now set. And yes, it actually happened. We get the number one seed from the American League against the number one seed in the National League. We had talked about it building up to this. Could it actually happen? It doesn't happen that often. And we actually got it. We get the New York Yankees versus the Los Angeles Dodgers. We get Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton and Juan Soto versus Shohei Ohtani and Tommy Edman and Mookie Betts. I mean, we have those diehard Yankee fans that are also Dallas Cowboys, Los Angeles Lakers, and Notre Dame fans versus the Dodger faithful, whose most epic moment in history is obviously when Kirk Gibson hit that home run back in '88, and we saw all the fans' taillights as they were already leaving the park to beat the traffic. They never even saw the play happen. But we get the absolute best scenario for Major League Baseball. Hey, this is their chance to make a dent in those TV ratings with this matchup. Now, in an ideal world, they would get 7 highly entertaining games. But how is this going to go? I mean, the Yankees got here by winning the AL East. Then they beat the Kansas City Royals in the ALDS. Then they beat the Cleveland Guardians in the ALCS. Now, remember, the Bronx Bombers haven't won the World Series since back in 2009. Does that provide any extra pressure on this team? We'll see. The Dodgers, on the other hand, won the NL West. Then they beat the San Diego Padres in NLDS and the New York Mets in the National League Championship Series. Now, this marks the Dodgers' second pennant of the decade and their fourth since back in 2000. Remember, they did win it all in 2020. Well, sort of, right? Because you remember, that was during the pandemic-shortened season, and so it kind of has an asterisk next to it. And by kind of, I mean, it totally does. But, hey, you win it this year, that asterisk kind of goes away a little bit. Because LA has not won a World Series in a full season since 1988. Now, when I look at this matchup, the Yankees have the better starting rotation. The Dodgers bullpen has been better than expected, but they did play a lot of innings to get to this point. Now, we know the Yankees lineup, it's ridiculously stacked. And somehow, the Dodgers lineup might be a shade better. You know, in the 4 games that they won in the NL Championship Series against the Mets, the Dodgers scored 8 or more runs in every win. Now, I do think one thing that is important is that this series will play 2 games in LA, then 3 in New York, followed by the final 2 games back in LA if needed. And I actually think that 2-3-2 schedule is an advantage for the road team. I think that's an advantage for the Yankees. Split the first 2 games, and you don't have to go back to the West Coast at all. Now, there's a few ways I could see this playing out. I could see the Yankees touching up the Dodgers starters early in the series, and then LA is forced to overextend that bullpen, and that could hurt them later on. I could also see the Dodgers smashing that Yankees bullpen the way that Cleveland did in games 3 and 4 of the ALCS. Remember, Cleveland doesn't have the power that LA has. If that happens, this is going to be a short series. Okay, so I'll actually make my pick somewhere in between. I will take the Dodgers in 6. I will take Mookie Betts to win the MVP, and I am just honestly hoping for a highly entertaining World Series. The postseason has been a lot of fun, Yeah, probably a few too many blowouts, but it's been fun. Now let's hope we have a great fall classic. Hey, today on The Dose, we're going to be doing something that we have not done in a while. You know, back in the day, I was actually invited to be a guest on a local sports radio show, and we would make our weekly NFL picks. Well, we just might have a little bit of a flashback week here on The Dose. But first, we do have a little bit of news to talk, and I want to start off in a sport we haven't jumped into quite yet, and that is college basketball. Because we had some big news take place last week, and you might have actually missed it because college hoops hasn't started, one, and two, we don't care about college basketball until March Madness, and then we jump in. But Tony Bennett, the 55-year-old Virginia men's basketball coach, announced his immediate retirement last week, just 20 days before the basketball season actually starts. Now, Tony Bennett isn't an old guy. He's only 55 right now, but his list of accomplishments, hey, it's up there with some of the all-time greats. Again, considering the short length of his career. Remember, he led Virginia to the national championship in 2019. He was a 4-time ACC Coach of the Year, a 3-time U.S. Basketball Writers Association Coach of the Year. He was the 2007 Pac-10 Coach of the Year. He had 4 number 1 seeds in the tournament, 12 NCAA tournament appearances, and his career record is 433 to 169. That is a really, really good record, especially, like I said, for a younger guy. So why is Tony Bennett, who just did the ACC Media Day press conferences in preparation for the season, suddenly retired? I'll tell you why. Because coaching at the college level now sucks. Do you think it is just a coincidence that Mike Krzyzewski, Jim Boeheim, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, and Lon Kruger have all recently retired? No, it isn't. Think about it. Transfer waivers are unlimited. Players are being paid to play, but it isn't regulated. So right now, they have given the players all the power. The coaches have 0 days off and 0 certainty that a recruit they have been chasing for years is even going to show up. Because again, players have 0 limits and players have 0 loyalty. Look, I understand the format needed to change. I understand that players are making these universities huge money, and they deserve some of that money. I even get that there are certain aspects to this that create more parity on the playing surface, which is more fun. I mean, you think about even college football this year, we saw Vandy beat Alabama. We didn't get that in years past. And yet, there are aspects to all this that do not lend themselves to being sustainable. Look, we are going to continue to lose good coaches that don't want to deal with all this crap. And what you're going to end up with is glorified AAU ball, which, if I'm being honest, is where it nearly is now. But don't say you didn't know. I'll tell you right now, you can go ahead and expect guys like Tom Izzo and Rick Barnes and Leonard Hamilton and Ed Cooley and Mark Few. They're going to be resigning soon as well because this job is horrible. I'm warning you right now. Enjoy the final days of some of these great coaches that have been around for years because I really don't think they're going to be around much longer. It's not sustainable. And neither is the current NCAA model. And until there is a massive change that takes place where they kind of rein in this Wild West mess, I mean, you're going to have good coaches get out of this game because it just isn't worth staying in it. As much money as they're making, it is a horrible job and you have 0 days off and 0 guarantees. Nobody's going to want that job. Moving over to the NBA. Again, I know we haven't jumped all in on the NBA quite yet, but it was announced last week that Los Angeles Clippers star Kawhi Leonard will be sidelined indefinitely to begin the NBA season as he rehabs from some inflammation in his right knee. Hold on a second. You know, actually, that isn't news at all. What would be news is if Kawhi was actually going to play. That would be newsworthy. This is not news. Never mind. Finally, the WNBA is coming off of its most popular season in league history with the arrival of Caitlin Clark and, yes, Angel Reese and the rest of the 2024 rookie class, whoever they were, I have no idea. And I know that here on The Dose in recent weeks, we have tried to discuss some of the WNBA playoffs and the WNBA finals, and we just ran out of time. And I know that the WNBA finals just ended this past week as one team beat a different team and they won the title. I'm not really sure on the specifics. But what WNBA news that I am sure about is that the league apparently is still going to lose a lot of money. Not sure if you saw this, but NBA owners, they're not very happy with the WNBA and their financial struggles. Not surprisingly, they are growing tired of paying to prop that league up. This is according to the New York Post. The WNBA still lost $40 million this season. Okay, so again, I was told there would be no math when I started this podcast, but let me try to add this up. This is the 26th straight year where the WNBA fails to turn a profit. Never before has the Professional Women's Basketball League made a single dollar since it came to exist back in spring of 96. Now, the NBA owns 60% of that league, and that number is actually a little bit higher. It's probably 75% when you count the owner's personal stakes into the equation. But NBA team owners say they want a return on their investment in the WNBA. They are growing more and more frustrated, and the WNBA disagrees. Here's what they had to say. They say, I'm not making this up, you can look it up. The WNBA says they were projected to lose $50 million this year, and they did $10 million better by only losing $40 million. Did you hear what I just said? They said they were projected to lose 50. They only lost 40, so they did better. And on Monday, it was announced that WNBA players have opted out of their current collective bargaining agreement, and they are facing the prospect of a work stoppage if they don't negotiate a new deal with the league by the end of the 2025 season. The players want higher salaries, they want private jets, and they want hotel suites because they only lost $40 million. And I know what WNBA fans are saying. They're saying, hey, these players deserve more. These players deserve to get paid more than just your average McDonald's worker. Here's the problem. McDonald's makes a profit. Do you see why so many times here on The Dose, we run out of time when talking about the WNBA? So this week on The Dose, I wanted to do a favor for our listeners. I wanted to make you all some money. You know, the Daly Dose started actually years ago now. I think it was back in 2013 when I did a few guest spots on a local sports radio show. And before I knew it, I was given my own show. And the Daly Dose was somehow bizarrely born. Well, I mean, here's the thing. I don't do it very often because usually we're too busy just pointing and laughing at the sports world that we don't really do picks all that often. But hey, we can. Do you think I can't still make picks? I can still make picks.
I'm just saying, he still got it.
So I'm telling you right now, I want you to sit back. I want you to relax, and I want you to get ready to make some money. Because here are our Daly Dose picks for NFL Week 8. Let's start off with the game tomorrow night, where the 5-1 Minnesota Vikings, who are coming off of their first loss of the season to the Detroit Lions on Sunday, are headed to LA to face the 2-4 Rams, who did get a win on Sunday over the Raiders. Now, the Vikings are way better than we expected them to be this year. Sam Darnold has stepped in. He has some big-time weapons, and he does a good job of finding them, and that running game is solid with Aaron Jones in the backfield. But we did see on Sunday, the Vikings defense, they can't play man-to-man. They have to stay in zone, or they will be exposed. The problem for the Rams is that they're just not very good. I mean, they run the ball okay. The defense is okay. And Matt Stafford still makes a few big-time plays per game. But honestly, at this point, the Rams are just hoping they can keep games close and then maybe Stafford can come up with a win at the end. I don't like that plan here. The Vikings can zone the Rams because the Rams are so banged up in the receiving core. And the Vikings offense should get back on track this week. The Vikings are favored on the road by 3, and I think they cover that. I will take Minnesota to win and to cover. Let's move to Sunday. The 4-2 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Cincinnati to face the 3-4 Bengals, who have now won 2 games in a row. Now, we have seen the blueprint for the Eagles to win games. Feed running back Saquon Barkley. The Eagles have got to stop hoping that quarterback Jalen Hurts makes plays. Just feed Saquon, run the ball, and then let Hurts make a big play when you have the defense off balance. I expect the Bengals to be very, very tough at home on Sunday. But I also wonder about this. Think of who they've beaten. Yes, they've won 3 games on the year. The Panthers, the Giants, and the Browns. The Bengals defense allows way too many points, and I think the Eagles should be able to score on Sunday. The Bengals are favored at home by 2.5. I'll pick the Eagles to win that game outright. The Baltimore Ravens started a little slow this season. They started a little bit slow on Monday night, but they have finally figured out that if they will just feed running back Derrick Henry, they're going to be tough to beat. And now the Ravens are 5-2. The Ravens head to Cleveland to face the 1-6 Browns, who had a particularly tough week. Annoyed that the front office wouldn't make a move, God himself snapped quarterback Deshaun Watson's Achilles tendon, and now the Browns are forced to try a new quarterback. Now, it should be Jameis Winston, who, by the way, is the most unintentionally funny person on the planet. And I actually think the Browns are going to be better with Winston than they were with Watson, but it's not going to matter this week. The Ravens are 9.5-point favorites on the road. I don't even think that's enough. Here is one thing to think about, though. That Ravens defense, it's not great. They give up too many big plays. That might be something to watch with them going forward. But on Sunday, I am seeing the Ravens roll to like a 27-13 kind of score. That should be an easy win, and they should cover. I will take Baltimore. The 5-1 Detroit Lions look like they might be the best team in the league overall, and they proved they're the best team in the NFC, at least right now, beating the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. Hey, the Lions have weapons, and quarterback Jared Goff, he looks to attack you downfield, and his dangerous playmakers can embarrass you. Now, they're going to have to figure out how to create a consistent pass rush with pass rusher Aiden Hutchinson out for the year. But they'll try to do that by committee. It won't be the same, but maybe they can at least survive. On the other side, they will be facing this Sunday the 1-5 Tennessee Titans, who are just not very good. You know, they have some talent, especially on defense, but the defense gets tired of holding up their end of the bargain only to see quarterback Will Levis, I don't know, try to punt a ball through his own legs or something idiotic. I could see the Lions having a bit of a letdown after that big win against Minnesota, but once they get going and that Tennessee defense quits, yeah, it's going to get ugly. The Lions are favored by 11.5. They might cover 25. I will take the Lions to win this by at least 2 touchdowns. The Arizona Cardinals got a wild win on Monday night over the Los Angeles Chargers as little Kyler Murray was tearing all over the place like a drunken toddler. The Cardinals are now 3-4. And that offense shows signs at times of clicking a little. They're not great, but they're dangerous. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins have been absolutely awful since losing quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. After starting the year 2-0, they have now lost 4 games in a row, and honestly, they've looked terrible doing so. The Dolphins are now 2-4. They host the Cardinals, but the good news for Miami is that they say Tua is going to be back this week. Will he be wearing a massively oversized helmet? Possibly.
Oh, your helmet is so big.
The Dolphins are favored by 3 here at home, and I think this is going to be a field goal type of game because it's going to take some time for Tua to get his timing back with his teammates if he does play. If they keep him out, I think Arizona wins this outright. If Tua plays, I will take Miami to win this by 3. I don't know if you want to bet on that. That's just a push. That might be a little dangerous to bet on. If you have no reason to live whatsoever, I guess you could watch the 2-5 New York Jets go to New England to play the 1-6 Patriots on Sunday. This game should be as painful to watch as like having a root canal. After trading for wide receiver Davante Adams, the Jets were blown out on Sunday night by Pittsburgh. And you know the biggest thing I noticed about this team? Quarterback Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't want to throw the ball downfield. He wants to just dink and dunk and check down every time. The Jets do nothing creative on defense, but they do get Hassan Reddick back this week. Maybe that helps their pass rush a little. However, none of that should matter because the Patriots are terrible. They can't score points, and they won't be able to cover both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson. Plus, the Jets should be able to run the ball against him. New York is favored by 7.5, and I know that's a high number for that awful team, but they should be able to cover that here because the Patriots are just so bad. And then when they do, we'll have to hear about, oh, the Jets are back. Are the Jets a playoff team? Don't believe the hype. They're horrible. Moving on. The Atlanta Falcons had a chance this past Sunday to prove they are going to be a threat in the NFC. They hosted the Seattle Seahawks, and they got punched square in the mouth, and then they just fell down and began sobbing. The Seahawks beat them by 20, and now the 4-3 Falcons must go to Tampa to play the 4-3 Buccaneers, who started strong against Baltimore on Monday night, and then they rolled up like Mike Evans' hamstring. I would love to take the Buccaneers here at home. I mean, remember, they just beat Atlanta in that shootout a few weeks ago, but their wide receiver health is a serious problem. Evans has a hamstring. Chris Godwin has some sort of serious ankle problem too. So I hate to do this. Tampa's favored by 2.5. I'm going to take Atlanta to win this outright. And if they do, they're going to be in the driver's seat for this awful, awful division, the NFC South. Let's jump back into our NFL picks for Week 8. And the Jacksonville Jaguars got a big win on Sunday after they started the season 1-5. They went back over to London to play the Patriots this past Sunday, and they actually won. Now, I'm convinced if they had lost that game, head coach Doug Peterson, he would have had to paddle a canoe back to the States. But the Jags won. They won pretty easy, and now they're 2-5. That's the good news. The bad news is on Sunday, they'll be hosting the 5-2 Green Bay Packers, who are a very dangerous team. The Packers just outscored the Houston Texans on Sunday. Hey, Green Bay looks to attack you. They are another team. They push that ball down the field, and I'll be honest, I don't think Packers quarterback Jordan Love has really played that well just yet. He's missed a lot of throws. He's forced a few passes. Well, the Packers are 5.5-point favorites on the road down in Jacksonville. I'll be honest, I don't think that's enough. The Packers offense against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Yeah, I think Jordan Love has his big week this week. He is going to blow them out. I'll take the Packers by double digits. The Indianapolis Colts scraped out an ugly win on Sunday over the Miami Dolphins and pushed their record to 4-3. Yeah, quarterback Anthony Richardson was back, and he reminded us all he is a big, strong, powerful kid that has all the throwing accuracy of Tim Tebow on a windy day. The Colts will travel down to Houston to face those 5-2 Texans with the division lead on the line. Houston's in first. Indy's in second. Who's going to come out on top here? You know, Houston quarterback C.J. Stroud, he had one of his worst games on Sunday against Green Bay. Now, was that just a weird fluke? Or has wide receiver Stephon Diggs begun to ruin this offense too? We'll see. The Texans are favored by 6.5 at home, but you know, Indy can't stop the run. I think Houston running back Joe Mixon gets going, and I think C.J. Stroud has a big bounce back game. I'll take Houston by double digits. New Orleans Saints are officially a mess after they started the season 2-0. They have suffered a ton of injuries, and they have now lost 5 games in a row. Hey, they're just trying to find warm bodies at this point. Their defense is allowing nearly 6 yards per carry. Well, that's really bad news because the Los Angeles Chargers want to play smash mouth football under head coach Jim Harbaugh, And I know the Chargers fell to 3-3 on Monday night against Arizona, but they should be able to get back on track here. It won't be pretty because the Chargers are the Chargers and they do Chargers things, but I could easily see this being like a 19-6 game. And that would cover the 7.5 points that the Chargers are favored by. So I'm taking the Chargers to cover here. The 4-3 Seattle Seahawks are so hard to predict this year. You know, they started the season 3-0. Then they lost 3 in a row. This past week, they went to Atlanta. They smacked the Falcons in the mouth. Quarterback Geno Smith, he is playing well. He has some talented receivers, and they're basically just saying, hey, Geno, just fire the ball all over the field. Let those guys go get it. And right now, Geno Smith is leading the league in passing yardage. What year is it? It's insane. The Seahawks will get a test this week, though, because the Buffalo Bills come to town, and they looked much improved with new wide receiver Amari Cooper in the lineup. Hey, Amari Cooper could be a game changer for the Bills. Buffalo is now 5-2, but we know their offense needed another playmaker, and hey, Cooper might be that guy. Running back James Cook should be back, and he could have a huge day against the Seattle defense that doesn't always stop the run. If so, that's going to open things up big time for quarterback Josh Allen. He's going to be chucking it down the field. He's going to be running like he loves to do. I actually think Seattle versus Buffalo is going to be one of the better games of the week. The Bills are favored by 3. I think that's about right. I think I'll take the Bills to win by a field goal. So again, that would be a push. Not sure you want to take that one, but I will take the Bills to win that game outright. The Carolina Panthers are wearing out more and more every week. You know, their defense works hard, but with that awful offense, they end up just wearing down. The Panthers are now 1-6. They're coming off of a 40-7 blowout loss to Washington. And now the Panthers get to come to altitude in Denver to face my Broncos, who are feeling good after blowing out the New Orleans Saints last Thursday. Now, I'll be honest. I actually think this could be a dangerous game for Denver, except for 2 things. 1, they're home. And 2, they get those extra few days of rest for head coach Sean Payton to make sure, hey, don't sleep on this team. I know it's the Panthers. I know they're not very good. Trust me, they'll still beat you if you guys don't come out and take care of business. Now, because that game is at home, I expect the Denver defense to be flying around. And I'll be surprised if they allow Carolina to even score double digits. As long as Bo Nix and the Denver offense, as long as they just don't turn the ball over a few times, they should manage enough points to take care of business. Denver is favored by 7.5, and I think they actually cover that number. And I don't say that very often about this team right now, but I think Denver can cover 7.5. The Kansas City Chiefs are now the lone undefeated team in the NFL. No, it hasn't always been pretty. No, they aren't scoring points like we expected, but the Chiefs' defense is carrying the load, and quarterback Patrick Mahomes is capable of making clutch plays when he has to. Now the Chiefs head to Las Vegas this week to face the Raiders, another team that has a really good defense, but then their offense is one of the worst in the league. Now, quarterback Aiden McConnell is done for at least a while. So the job has been given to Gardner Minshew, and he is, well, awful. The Chiefs haven't been blowing anyone out this year, but I bet they do that here. Because that Raiders defense is going to wear down. The Chiefs are favored by 10. I'll take those 10 points. I know it's a lot of points for a Chiefs team that isn't scoring that much, but I believe in one thing, and I believe in it strongly. I believe the Raiders have a commitment to excrement. Next up is a game that prior to the season, none of us would have wanted to watch. Now, I mean, if it were that time of year, I'd be all for them flexing this game into prime time. The 4-2 Chicago Bears go to Washington to play the 5-2 Commanders. Now, the Bears are coming off of a bye week, which does make them a little more dangerous. And the Commanders are hoping to have quarterback Jaden Daniels back after a rib injury sidelined him this past week in that win over Carolina. But I'll say this, backup Marcus Mariota played really, really well in his absence. Granted, it was, like I said, against Carolina. Chicago is favored by a single point here on the road. I expect this to be a fun game. Here's the difference for me. I trust the Chicago defense more than I do the Washington defense. So I will take the Chicago Bears to cover and to win. Finishing out Sunday, on Sunday night, we get the Dallas Cowboys versus the San Francisco 49ers. Yes, the 3-3 Dallas Cowboys narrowly avoided losing their bye week game, and now they get to face a Niners team that is 3-4 and really struggling. Hey, Dallas hasn't had a decent defense in years, and their run game is a little light, which is ironic when you look at running back Ezekiel Elliott's belt. Meanwhile, the Niners are just so injured. Christian McCaffrey hasn't played yet. Brandon Ayuk is gone with a blown knee. Deebo Samuel had to go to the hospital for pneumonia. I mean, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall took a slug to the chest and is actually one of the more healthy 49er players right now. But despite all those injuries, the Niners are somehow still favored by 5.5. What in the world is going on? The Cowboys should be getting linebacker Micah Parsons back this week. Hey, if they are ever going to beat San Francisco, this is the week. And yet, why do I feel like Kyle Shanahan is just going to run the ball down their throat? Yeah, I'll take San Francisco by a touchdown. That will cover the 5.5. Let's finish up NFL Week 8 with the Monday night game with what should be, honestly, a pretty ugly game. We get the 2-5 New York Giants facing the 5-2 Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, coaching matters. And I know we kind of bypass that sometimes. We kind of go, oh no, it's the players. Coaching doesn't really matter. Mike Tomlin proved coaching matters last week against the New York Jets because he put quarterback Russell Wilson out there, but he put him in positions to be successful. And yes, Russ managed to skip a few balls into the dirt. He even got booed by some of his hometown fans, but then he rallied and he led the Steelers to a win over the Jets. Meanwhile, the Giants, they're in some big trouble. They got popped in the mouth on Sunday by the Eagles, and former Giant running back Saquon Barkley had his easiest date since NBA players started dating Kardashians. Things got so bad that the Giants actually replaced quarterback Daniel Jones with Drew Lock toward the end of the game. Bad news. It might happen again because that Steelers defense is going to try to knock Daniel Jones out of the game this week. They're going to beat him up. And while the Steelers might struggle to score points for a while, and I could even see Russ getting booed again because that Giants defense isn't bad, the Steelers should manage to win. And I bet they'd even cover those 6.5 points. Hey, like I said, we used to be in the business of making these picks every single week. And so I just wanted to help you listeners make a little extra money this week. Hey, and by the way, if you don't believe me, just bet against every pick that I made. Then you'll be fine. Hey, next week on The Dose, we will, of course, be keeping you up on all that is going on in the world of sports. And it will be Halloween week. We just might have to discuss those scary things that go bump in the world of sports. So be sure you tune in and be sure you let a friend know to do the same. Hey, remember that you should be stopping by DailyDoseSports.com every week. You can see some of the new things we have going on over there. We have links to the podcast, we have links to videos, and we have links to new articles going up each week. So make sure you check that out. You can also always email the podcast at DailyDoseSports@gmail.com. We've actually heard from a few listeners recently, and it is always good to hear from you. We will always respond when we hear from you. Hey, I just want to thank each and every one of you for listening to the Daily Dose every week. Thank you for the emails. Thank you for the texts. Thank you for the tweets. But more than anything, thank you for sharing the show, for sharing the videos, for sharing the articles with someone that you know. We absolutely love it when you do that. I have to say thank you to Jess P. Could not do any of this without you. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week, everybody.